you for being here in this presentation. My name, as you can read here, is Bruno Mateos. We're going to talk about communication on incident management, letters from war, it's a cool name. And I am support engineer for Netcentric. Probably most of you, I don't know most, but some of you who don't know what exactly is a support engineer. Well, I'm going to try to more or less let you know after this talk, so let's see how it goes. When I had to think about what to talk about here in the presentation, of course, it was about incident management, but incident management involved many different aspects, not only communication, but I have to choose, or I have to pick one specific aspect to talk about. So I was thinking, okay, Bruno, what's the thing that you do most in your life? And it's clear, and probably those who work with me, you know it. I talk a lot. I'm constantly talking. It's like I'm a machine talking. So it's like, it's clearly the topic I have to talk about talk, but that's not a topic. Then I think, okay, what is talk? Talk is to communicate. So communication sounds more like a topic for a presentation. Communication, incident management, here we are. Let's start with the question, why? Why I am here and why are you here? The reason is because incident management involves many different skills and many different aspects, and communication is just one of these aspects, but it's a fundamental aspect. Why? Because the aim of the incident management resolution is to solve and restore the service as soon as possible, and there, communication is fundamental. I'm sure that in this room I can see developers, I can see QAs, project managers, I can see a lot of people from different roles. Probably some of you, especially developers and system engineers, I have some there, probably some of you are thinking, well, communication is not for me. On incident management, the only thing I have to do is to work, develop something, fix bugs, or restore the systems, but I don't want to talk with nobody. I want to be behind my screen there. No, that's actually false. I was doing some researching here, as you can see, and actually, up to 61% of our daily workload, it's related to communication. Things like reading emails and answering emails, that's super annoying, but it takes a lot of time, as you can see here, 28%. Things like communication internally, collaborating, those are communication tasks, and those are fundamental. Only 39% of your daily workload, it's related to your role in the company. The developers, they develop, the system engineers, they manage the systems, and QAs, and so on. So this is why communication is so important, and we don't pay enough attention to communication. We just give it for granted. It's like, oh yeah, it's just answering emails. We don't think about it, but it's really important. It's really important to know how to communicate properly, and to do it, we should know which tools we have in our hands, and to use those tools properly. First, I want to start explaining what exactly is an incident. Probably, hands up, who knows what exactly is an incident? I don't see too many hands. I was expecting more, but well. An incident is an interruption of the service, but I was doing some research and trying to find some information on the Oxford Dictionary, and I found a really nice description of what is an incident. An incident is an occurrence of a dangerous or an exciting thing. So that's what I'm going to tell my mother next time she calls me and asks me, Bruno, what are you doing at work? Ma'am, I'm doing dangerous and exciting things. Super exciting. But we are living in an ITIL company. And ITIL, the ITIL definition for an incident, it's an interruption of the service. And the aim of the incident management process is to restore this service as quick as possible and trying to minimize the impact on the business. So, as quick as possible and minimize the impact. This is about quickness and effectiveness. And those two things, my dear friends, communication is super important. Let's have a look at the incident management lifecycle. We have different steps, like incident detection is the first step whenever we've got an incident, classification and initial support, investigation and diagnosis, resolution and recovery, and finally the incident closure. What you can see here, it's the main task of a support engineer is taking ownership of the incidents, monitoring that no new incidents are coming, tracking those incidents, documenting them, and finally communicating to all the stakeholders involved, both internally, to the people working in solving the incident, and also externally, to the clients, to the stakeholders, third-party companies involved. So, communication, in this case, affects every single step of the life cycle, and it can help so many different things. For example, it can help to improve or to make the transition of the information between steps more fluent. I'm going to give you an example. One of the things that the support engineers we are doing, it's monitoring. We are on call. We have on-call contracts, for some clients. So once per week, you have to be checking application called OpsGenie, who sends you alerts. And sometimes, very often, to be honest, you get an alert at 3 a.m. at night, no? So you're there in the bed, you check the mobile, and it's like, oh my God, an alert. You have to wake up, go to the computer, turn on the computer, log into the systems. Well, nothing is happening. I close, I go back to bed. And nothing happened, actually. 1 year ago, more or less, one of our colleagues, Arthur, who was giving a presentation before, Arthur, I think you're around here, no? Okay, you're there. Well, he implemented a great improvement in the monitoring system. He started to create meaningful alerts. So whenever we get an alert, with the alert itself, we have more information about what's going on. This looks like, okay, well, yeah, it's an improvement. Well, this leads to things like, okay, now whenever I wake up at 3 a.m., I only have to check my mobile and say, like, this is nothing, and I go back to sleep. Because I get that information directly. So this step, the incident detection and recognition and the initial support, it comes with more fluent and better information, and it's easy to work on it. Another thing where communication can help to improve the whole process is to ensure that the information is transmitted correctly until the closure of the incident. For example, to let the client know that the incident is finished. And I'm going to tell you a funny story. I'm not going to tell the client because I want to keep it in secret, but once we had an outage in an author system, and I sent an email informing all the stakeholders, like, I don't know, around 100 people, no? Saying, we have an outage on the author systems, we're working on solving it, and we will let you know as soon as the systems are up and running again. Like half an hour later, more or less, one system engineer solved it, and I sent communication saying that, hey, you can go back to author and keep on working. But in that process, probably doing some control, copy and paste, I made a mistake and I missed one guy. I didn't send the email to one particular guy. One day later, I got an email from that guy saying, hey, Bruno, can I go back to author and work again? Were you really waiting for me to tell you? But that's true. Some people, they need that communication, and it's super important to send it. And another thing where communication can help here is to transform the data and the information that we are getting during the incident resolution and during the analysis, transform that data into knowledge. It's not the same. What we are getting is numbers, like super ugly stuff, like, oh, what is this, like a matrix? No. We have to turn that into knowledge. We have to learn things from the incidents to make it understandable for everybody and to share that knowledge. And communication is fundamental for that. Now, I'm going to talk about the relationship between technology and communication. And the first step is a guess game. So I want you to read this sentence from an inventor, Orville Wright, and I want you to guess which invention is he talking about. Because he thought that this invention will prevent future wars, like it will make the world a better place, a peaceful place. So what do you think he's talking about? Okay, Peter, you're good. He was talking about airplanes. Well, this airplane obviously is not very good for wars, but if you have a look at the news, any newspaper nowadays, you can imagine that the wars today with all the bombings, drones, and things like that, well, the war maybe it's not a better place just because airplanes exist, no? Why I'm telling you this? Because sometimes the technologies we use, they don't have, or at the end, they don't end up being what we expect from them. We thought that they're going to work some way, and at the end, they work completely the other way around. And this is important whenever we are working with technology, and obviously we are an IT company. Marcel McLuhan, it's a rock star of sociology on the 70s and 80s. He's a Canadian sociologist. He's very, very famous for a sentence that you probably hear sometimes. He says, the medium is the message. No? He was very into the new media stuff, and he's very famous. I want you to read this sentence. We become what we behold. We shape our tools, and then our tools shape us. And this is fundamental, because when we think about technology, and also in communication, we tend to think that either we build that technology, or that technology configures and shapes the way we communicate each other. But actually, the relation is completely bidirectional. It's like we shape the technologies, and the technologies also shape us. That's why it is so important to know and to understand the technologies we are using to communicate each other. Because if we don't know them well, we are going to have problems while communicating. This is going to lead to errors, to misleads, to noise in the channels, and it's fundamental not to have those problems. Let's have a look at the portfolio of the communication technologies we've got in Netcentric. These are just the ones that I'm using. I'm probably losing some here. I'm sure that most of you can add more to this list and make it like until here at least, no? Some of them you think like, hey, honestly, this is not a communication technology. No, it is actually. Why? Because we are using it to exchange information, to exchange data. So if any of you send €5 to someone, for example, me, you are not only sending €5, you are also sending a message. You are telling that person, hey, you did your work great, and I'm really thankful to you. So that's part of the communication. That's why it's important to know each of them and to use them properly. One password. I don't know if you use it, but it's a fundamental tool in order to share information in a private mode, like to make it private and secure. How to choose the correct tool whenever we're going to communicate something? There are different factors that we have to take into account. First, synchron versus asynchron. This is a fundamental part of the communication technologies. Each technology could be synchron or asynchron, for example, and sometimes that edge is not that clear. Is it WhatsApp synchron or asynchron? It's an interesting question. Eh? I'm sure that you already talked about this with your girlfriends or boyfriends. Like, hey, don't expect me to reply as soon as you send me the message. Just because the double check is there, don't think that I'm going to answer right now. Well, email, for example, is a clearly asynchronous technology, but some of them are not that clear. So please think about this before you send the message, because it's important to know if you can expect the answer immediately or you have to wait for it. Another factor, security and privacy. This is fundamental, especially if you have legal requirements. For example, for some clients like Daimler, we have to store passwords, personal information. You cannot do it in an open environment. It has to be closed, it has to be secure, it has to be legal and approved by the client. So it's fundamental to take this into account. Persistence and accessibility. This is also very important. Do you want that information to remain in the system? Do you want to make it accessible for everybody? How accessible it has to be? Are we going to use Git? Are we going to use any other system for exchange the code? What are we going to do? Think about this. Priority. This is also yes, great. This is also very important. Not all the tools have the same priority, and even the same tool could have different priorities depending on the context. And I'm going to give you an example. Think that you want to send a message to a friend. Probably WhatsApp has a bigger priority for your friend than email, than a normal email. If you get a WhatsApp from a friend, you have to answer immediately. But if you get an email from a friend, okay, I will answer tomorrow. But at work, it's completely the other way around. In a professional environment, an email, it's something psychological, but an email has more priority than maybe a chat like Slack or any other. So think how people is going to understand the priority of the message you are sending just because of the channel you are using. The audience, what's the audience? Is it big? Is it small? Are you going to send a message just to one person, to a broad audience? You have to ensure that everybody is going to receive the message. You cannot say something in Slack if you need to reach 300 people because you don't know if you are missing someone. Maybe not absolutely everybody has a Slack. So, like global communications, obviously, what is this? Now I know how Madonna feels in a concert. So, I need bigger ears, huh? So, think about the audience who is going to receive the message. Disruption, communication can be really disruptive. Again, Arthur gave us last year a super interesting presentation about context changing, no? And we know that whenever you're working, especially developers, I used to be a developer, so you know that you're there like, oh, shit, I don't know that. And people bombing you in Slack can break your concentration completely. So whenever you're going to send a message, especially to clients, you have to know if this message is going to be very disruptive. You cannot take the phone simply because you have the phone of that person and say, oh yeah, I've got your phone number, so I call you every time I need you. No, because the phone, it's extremely disruptive. Nature of information, what are we going to share? Are we going to share images? Are we going to share video? Are we going to have a meeting with 16 people? Maybe then it's better a video conference and not having 16 people in a call where you don't understand nothing of what they are saying. Get the best out of your tool. I'm going to give you three simple advices. Follow the protocols. Each tool, it has a protocol about how to be used. And if it has not, if it hasn't got it, then you have to establish it. You have to agree with the client or with your colleagues how to use that tool. Which protocol are you going to use? Respect the timing. This goes for all the Spanish people in the room. It's really bad manners to interrupt people when they are talking. Respect the timing. Don't bump the people. Don't be throwing messages constantly. Remember that it's not the same to use channel in Slack than to use here. If you are on holidays and somebody uses channel, you're going to get the message. If you are on holidays and somebody writes here, you're not going to get it. So let people enjoy their holidays, no? And finally, investigate and share. Research, find new features of your tools, whatever can help for people to communicate better. Just share it with your colleagues, with the client. Say, let's use this, let's use that. It's an improvement. And finally, I want to give you 4 different communicational strategies or ways of thinking whenever you are dealing with incident management. The first one, what to say. Here we have to make a difference between internal and external communication. When we are talking about internal communication, it's important that it has to be completely transparent. Everything has to be, well, almost everything has to be available for everybody and very easy. One of the tasks of the support engineers is to ensure that the information internally is fluent and everybody knows their accountabilities, to create channels, to agree channels with these people. Hey, whenever we've got an incident, we're going to create a channel in Slack, I bring the people in and let the experts talk there, and if something comes out from that channel, I can share that information outside. But it's important to know that. Externally, what to say, you don't need to say absolutely everything. It's really important the knowledge of an incident. Let the requester or the incident know that you are taking care of that incident, you are already working on it, and when the incident is closed, of course, because otherwise maybe one guy can call you next day, hey, can I keep on working, please? What to hide? This is not about to lie. We're not cheating nobody. It's super important, always tell the truth. If somebody asks you a question, you have to be honest and say, hey, look, the whole system is down, man. We are working on it, but this is not working right now. But sometimes not all the information needs to be shared. If you're working on something, imagine that you have a ticket in Europe. This ticket is open for the client, and some people from Netcentric, some developers or whatever, they start to discuss in the ticket. No, I think this is because this bug. No, you are completely wrong. This is because of the system. No. Well, of course, the client doesn't need to know that, because it creates uncertainty on the client. We project the image that we are not secure about what we are doing, and remember, we are the experts. That's very important, so we have to project that image. Next one, handshaking. I love this. Handshaking, what is handshaking? Handshaking is just the beginning of the communication, and this is crucial. Why? Because it influences completely the way the communication goes further. The way you start the communication, it's fundamental. I'm going to tell you another story. When I was a kid, until my 12 years or more or less, I used to go to church with my mother, mainly because my mother wanted, Then I lost my faith completely. Now I only believe in Baldas now. So... at the end of I remember that the best moment was when the priest said, now may the peace be with you, and you have to look around and shake your hand with the people around. No? Usually it was like old ladies that, oh, you're so cute. But that was a good feeling, because you establish communication with someone, and you start that communication in a good way. So you go out and you feel better, and this is fundamental. I want you to know who are you working with. I want you to know your colleagues. I want you to know your clients. What's their name? Where are they from? What's their cultural background? How do they like to talk about? Yes, I want to know more about you. So I want you to, after this talk, to go get the beer and start to talk with the people you're working with. Like, hey, how do you like to talk in Slack? Do you want me to approach you just like, I need this? Or do you want me to say, hey, how are you? Usually, a good communication should start in a polite way, So this is a good advice for everybody. I know that we have a multicultural background, people of blue, people of red, but let's try to use formulas. Let's try to be polite. There is no problem about spending 2 seconds starting a conversation in Slack with, hello, how are you? there is no problem about it. You don't expect an answer like, oh, I'm fine, but I have a terrible day. Now, probably it's going to continue with the communication. So remember, handshaking. I want you to shake your hands. And finally, noise. Noise is a lovely concept. Noise, usually people think about it as something wrong. Oh, this is noisy. But it's not always something wrong. And actually, in incident management, noise is the main source of our information. We are looking for disruptions on the service. So most of the data we are getting, most of the people will consider it noise. You don't have to be here. But noise is interesting. And finally, another story, or another example. Imagine that you are listening to a concert of an orchestra at the radio. Imagine that the radio starts to broadcast the rehearsal of the orchestra before the concert. Well, that's actually music, and it's exactly what the orchestra is going to play afterwards. But you don't want to hear the rehearsal, you want to hear the concert. So that rehearsal, it's noise for us, because it's useless. But at the end of the concert, people, as you're going to do, stand up and start to clap. Well, that's actually noise, according to the definition of noise, because it's not music, it's not lovely, but it's not noise for us. Why? Because we're getting information. You know by the amount of claps, the length of the people clapping, you know if the concert was good or not. So that's why noise sometimes is interesting. And now, finally, now you know what is noise, I want you to make some noise for me.